You're listening to an African Elements top news story for April 10th, 2025. Please visit our website at africanelements.org for more daily news. U.S. food aid cuts, Somalia, 2025. Humanitarian crisis impact news hit hard when the U.S. announced cuts to emergency food aid for Somalia. People on the ground, especially humanitarian groups and those relying directly on food assistance, immediately raised alarms. They worried about the swift impact on the most vulnerable folks, including mothers, nursing women, and young children. This wasn't just a numbers game. It felt personal, threatening lives already hanging by a thread. The situation was already dire. Over 6 million people in Somalia were facing severe food shortages. Children and other vulnerable groups were suffering the most, consequently. Contractors working with aid organizations like the World Food Program felt the pinch right away. Mustafa Da, a WFP partner, spoke about immediate job losses for workers and the devastating effect on families who depended on this aid work for their survival. These cuts threatened not just food supplies, but also the local economies intertwined with aid distribution. The World Food Program, or WFP, stands as a giant in the fight against global hunger. Established back in 1963 by the UN and the Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, its mission is clear: combat hunger and boost food security worldwide. Headquartered in Rome, Italy, the WFP delivers emergency food relief during crises. It also works on long-term solutions, supporting nutrition, building infrastructure, and creating economic opportunities to help communities stand on their own feet. In 2023 alone, the WFP reached an incredible 152 million people. Much of its focus is on areas torn apart by conflict or struggling with climate change impacts. Beyond food delivery, the WFP runs the crucial United Nations Humanitarian Air Service, ensuring aid can reach remote locations. Furthermore, its work includes school feeding programs, support for small farmers, and nutrition projects, all aimed at achieving the UN's goal of zero hunger. The U.S. has been a major supporter, contributing $4.5 billion in 2024. However, recent cuts threaten to undo decades of progress, prompting serious warnings about the future of crisis response. After the initial shockwaves, there was some relief. The U.S. decided to reverse the funding cuts for emergency food programs in several countries, including Somalia, Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, Iraq, and Ecuador. This reversal was welcome news for millions facing hunger in those nations. For Somalia specifically, it meant that the lifeline extended by organizations like the WFP wouldn't be severed entirely, offering a glimmer of hope to families and communities pushed to the edge. However, the reversal wasn't universal. Cuts were maintained for Afghanistan and Yemen, two countries grappling with immense humanitarian crises. The available information doesn't explain the specific reasons behind these selective decisions. The scale of the initial proposed cuts, impacting a significant portion of the $4.5 billion U.S. contribution to WFP in 2024, had already raised serious concerns. Nathaniel Raymond from the Yale School of Public Health warned such deep reductions could be a potential extinction-level event for global crisis response efforts, highlighting the fragility of the system. Therefore, while some nations saw relief, others were left facing potentially catastrophic consequences. While Somalia and others saw a reprieve, the situation remained extremely grim in Afghanistan and Yemen, where U.S. aid cuts were upheld. In Afghanistan, the scale of need is staggering. Over 23 million people, which is roughly half the entire population, desperately require humanitarian assistance. The continuation of cuts means about 2 million people are set to lose vital food aid. Tragically, this includes over 650,000 malnourished children whose lives hang precariously in the balance. Yemen faces a similarly devastating outlook. The decision to maintain cuts there means 2.4 million people will lose access to food assistance. Furthermore, around 100,000 children will no longer receive the nutritional support they need to survive. This pushes the country closer to the brink of famine conditions, a danger that was already warned about in 2024. The continued lack of funding in these specific nations underscores the uneven nature of the aid reversal and leaves millions facing potential starvation. When we talk about acute food insecurity, it's serious. It means people are facing immediate life-threatening situations because they don't have enough safe and nutritious food. Experts use a scale called the Integrated Food Security Phase Classification, IPC, to measure how bad things are. Phases range from stressed, phase 2, up to catastrophe, famine, Phase 5. Reaching Phase 5 signals potential famine, a worst-case scenario. Globally, the numbers are alarming. Over 36 million children suffer from acute malnutrition because of these crises. What drives these terrible situations? The main culprits are conflict, economic shocks, like sudden price increases or job losses, and extreme weather events linked to climate change. In places like Sudan, political instability and fighting, combined with natural disasters like floods, have made food insecurity much worse, forcing people from their homes and destroying crops. Similarly, conflict is a huge factor in places like Afghanistan and Yemen. In fact, about two-thirds of the WFP's aid goes to help people caught in conflict zones, where food systems often break down completely. Consequently, these underlying issues make communities incredibly vulnerable to shocks like aid cuts. Copyright African Elements.